before Kathmandu had a name, before the temples were built, before anyone called this land Nepal, there were kings here, warrior kings. Kings so powerful that the greatest epic ever written, the Mahabharata, mentioned them by name. And yet, almost nobody knows their story. This is the history of the Kirata Dynasty, the forgotten rulers of ancient Nepal. And by the end of this video, you will never look at the Kathmandu Valley the same way again. 3,000 years ago, around 1000 BC, a people known as the Kiratas descended from the eastern Himalayas and settled the Kathmandu Valley. They were not outsiders. They were mountain people, fierce, organized, and deeply connected to the land they now claimed as their own. Ancient Sanskrit texts describe the Kiratas as skilled hunters and warriors. The Atharva Veda, one of Hinduism's oldest scriptures, mentions them as a distinct and powerful people living in the mountains of the north. Their first king was Yalambar, and Yalambar did not just rule a small valley tribe, he built a kingdom, a structured political system with laws, taxation, and a royal lineage that would last for over 1,000 years. Think about that. 1,000 years. The Roman Empire lasted about 500. The British Empire lasted about 300. The Kirata Dynasty of Nepal, a civilization most people have never heard of, ruled this valley for twice as long as Rome. And their story was only just beginning. But who were the Kiratas beyond their kings and battles? To understand them, we need to walk inside their world. The Kiratas were not just warriors. They were farmers, traders, and craftsmen. Archaeological evidence suggests they worked iron, forging tools and weapons with a skill that gave them a decisive advantage over neighboring peoples. They lived in the hills and forests surrounding the valley. Their settlements were strategically placed on high ground, positions that gave them sight lines across the valley floor and escape routes into the mountains if needed. These were not people who stumbled into power. They engineered it. Their society was organized around clans. Each clan had its own territory, its own leader, and its own obligations to the central king. This clan system, remarkably similar to structures found in ancient Scotland and Mongolia, gave the Kirata kingdom its resilience. When one clan was weakened, others held the kingdom together, and they were deeply spiritual people. Long before Hinduism formally arrived in the valley, the Kiratas worshipped the mountains themselves, believing that the peaks were living gods who watched over their people. Every Nepali who today looks at the Himalayas with reverence is echoing a feeling the Kiratas felt 3,000 years ago. They were not footnotes in someone else's history. They were the authors of this land's first chapter. Now here is where the story becomes extraordinary. The Mahabharata, the ancient Indian epic that is one of the longest poems ever written, contains a passage that Nepali historians believe refers directly to King Yalambar of the Kiratas. According to this tradition, Yalambar himself traveled to the plains of Kurukshetra to witness and perhaps join the great war between the Pandavas and the Kauravas. He arrived at the battlefield and approached Lord Krishna. He asked, "Which side should I fight on?" Krishna looked at the Kirata king and understood immediately. Yalambar was so powerful, so perfectly balanced as a warrior, that whichever side he joined would win. The balance of the entire war would shift. And so Krishna made a decision. He took his Sudarshana chakra, his divine disc, and in a single moment separated Yalambar's head from his body before the war could begin. Yalambar died on the battlefield, not in defeat, not in shame, but because he was too powerful to be allowed to tip the scales of history. A king so formidable that even the gods took notice. After Yalambar, 31 more Kirata kings would rule the Kathmandu Valley. Their names are recorded in ancient chronicles: Pavi, Skanda, Valamba, Humati, a royal lineage stretching across centuries. During their reign, the Kathmandu Valley was not isolated. It was a crossroads. Trade routes connecting India to Tibet passed directly through this valley. Merchants, scholars, and pilgrims moved through the mountain passes carrying silk, spices, manuscripts, and ideas. The Kiratas controlled these routes, and with control came wealth. With wealth came culture, and with culture came something that still stands today. The site where Pashupatinath Temple now stands, the UNESCO World Heritage Site that millions of devotees visit every year, was first established during the Kirata period. Every time a Nepali bows before Pashupatinath, they are continuing a tradition the Kiratas began. Nothing lasts forever, not even a dynasty that ruled for 1,000 years. Around the 3rd century AD, a new power arrived at the edges of the Kathmandu Valley. They came from the south, and they called themselves the Lichavis. The last Kirata king Gasti faced this new force. His dynasty, 32 kings, 1,000 years, an entire civilization, came to an end not with a great catastrophe, but with the quiet turning of an age. The Kiratas did not disappear. Their descendants still live in Nepal today. The Rai and Limbu communities of eastern Nepal trace their lineage directly back to the ancient Kiratas. Their languages, their customs, their festivals, living fragments of a 3,000-year-old culture. And the Lichavis who replaced them did not erase what the Kiratas built. They built on top of it. The sacred sites remained sacred. The valley remained a crossroads. The story continued, because that is what great civilizations do. They do not truly end. They transform. If you are Nepali, or if you carry Nepal in your heart from wherever you are in the world tonight, I want you to sit with what you just heard. Your civilization did not begin with a modern map or a political border. It began with a warrior king named Yalambar, standing in a valley ringed by the highest mountains on earth, deciding to build something that would last. It lasted 3,000 years and counting. The temple where your family prays, built on ground the Kiratas first made sacred. The valley your grandparents were born in, shaped by kings whose names history nearly forgot. If this video moved you, share it with one Nepali abroad who needs to hear this today. One share from you reaches someone who may never have known this story existed. Subscribe for a new chapter of Ancient Nepal every week. Next time, the golden age of the Lichavi dynasty and the temples they built that still stand after 1,600 years.